Hi, Victor Perton here, and we're in the Optimism Cafe with Nóirín Mosley, and we are joined by Eric Sim, the founder of the Institute of Life. Eric, g'day.
Hello, hello from Singapore. It's fantastic to be here. I feel so privileged to be in the presence of two big figures for optimism.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Now, the first question we always ask in the Optimism Cafe is what makes you optimistic? Eric, what makes you optimistic?
I became optimistic when I realized I can actually make my weakness my strength. Then the whole world become much easier. So when I was in high school, I failed my English. For literature, I got 28 out of 100. You know, I will kill my son if he gets 28 out of 100 for any subject, right? And that was me, 28 out of 100. What can I do? Of course, English cannot be improved overnight. But about 5-6 years ago, I started to write on social media. Of course, at the beginning, I was worried. What can I write? Who wants to listen to me, and would my English be good enough? So what did I do? I said, since my English is so bad, let me write in short sentences using simple English. And to compensate for my lack of English, I use really good photos, photos that I've taken with care. And that works for social media. Number one, nobody has time to read long passages. What school has taught us, intro, body, conclusion, you have to throw that out of the window. Now they want it quick. Your first sentence, you better say what you want to say. And the photos captures attention, it captures eyeball. So my weakness, bad in English, became a strength. If I have done very well writing Shakespeare's English, I don't think I can write for social media today. So that led me to think, actually weaknesses can become strength. And I start looking around and I feel maybe the world is not such a bad place if you know how to think. And it's just changing your mindset. I didn't change the world. My English didn't improve dramatically. Right? So that's why I'm optimistic. And I just want to give you another story. I always wanted to teach. So in year 2000, I applied to Princeton for its PhD program, so that, I can go to the school and become a professor. They rejected me, of course. Who am I so privileged to be able to do a PhD in Princeton? So 3 years later, 2003, I was working with Citigroup. I asked the HR officer, I told her, can you bring me along when you do campus recruitment in the university? She did. A month later, she said, hey, Eric, follow us to one of the university in Singapore. I followed. I talked about my job as a derivative structurer. It means financial product structuring and pricing. It got some interest among the students. The professor liked it, invited me to come back to give a lecture. So suddenly, without a PhD, I was giving a lecture to students. Of course, I wasn't paid. There was no title. It was just once a year. Fast forward to 2016, 16 years after I was rejected by Princeton, I was made a young associate professor in the finance department of one of the top universities in Hong Kong. So there is more than one path to achieve your goal. To be a professor in the university, besides getting my PhD, I can use 15, 20 years of banking experience to do that. It takes longer, but it still got me there. So there is no reason not to be optimistic.
Well,
Back
Eric,
to
you
you,
nail
Victor.
it. I mean, the definition we use for optimism is a belief that good things will happen and that things will work out in the end. And I mean, you are the epitome of that definition. You know, you had rejection and things worked out in the end with persistence. I think that's absolutely brilliant. No, you've nailed the definition, and of course those wonderful stories of optimism that carried you through. So tell us more. What is the Institute of Life?
I set up Institute of Life really to help the 22-year-old Eric Sim. You see, when I was studying engineering in the university, I have got zero social skills, zero social network beyond my classmate, and zero social capital. I didn't know how to engage with people so that people are willing to help. And without these three items, I did poorly in my first job. I was in banking then. Then my colleagues, you know, they are more savvy. They know how to talk to people. And I thought the way I was accessed in the bank should be how fast I calculate my numbers, how fast I calculate the foreign exchange prices, how good I use my Excel. I cannot be more wrong, right? It requires teamwork. It requires how you speak to client, how you sell, and whether you are likable or not.
Yeah.
How fast you calculate your financial product prices is a very small factor, and it gets smaller as you become more senior. So I think, so about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I thought, there must be a lot of people like me, right? Coming from low income group, coming from working class, the parents could be taxi drivers, could be cashier at the supermarket. And if you grew up in that environment, how can you develop social capital, social network, and your social skills? Maybe social skills they have, depending on the family upbringing. So I thought I would like to share some of this experience. In China, I just read a report recently. In China, students pay 12,000 US to agents in order to get a shot to work in investment bank. If you don't come from a rich family, you cannot pay that $12,000 to an external agent. So I say, let me set up Institute of Life, gather my friends who are from banking, who are from FMCG, law, the legal industry, to come together and teach what are the important skills that can make you a better worker, employee, or even an entrepreneur. So I have been very fortunate. Several universities around the world have engaged me and Institute of Life to teach this. I think they begin to realize that this is the missing piece. So I have been really busy with implementing some of my strategy, as well as some new ideas of how to transfer these skills. And now with COVID, it's even better. I can do this at the comfort of my home right now here, without even traveling. Yeah.
Perfect.
So that's it. It's really to help those people without resources.
Oh, no, that's a wonderful goal. In fact, that's, again, very similar to the Centre for Optimism and Project Optimism, you know, the ability for people to access learning at any time, any place, without it being beyond their ability to afford it. And I think, you know, the world is saying micro-credentials now are often more important than university degrees in so many spaces. But can I throw to you, Nóirín?
Sure. I'm just, I'm fascinated by all this, actually, because it seems that you are actually decreasing the skill gap and the opportunity gap in what you're doing at the Institute of Life, really creating sort of a level playing field, giving everyone a chance, if they'll take it. So speaking of which, what do you think, Eric, is the link between innovation strategy and optimism?
Let me tell you another story. I just did my master's in finance, still very young, worked for like 3-4 years. So I was in Standard Chartered Bank. I then one day decided to write an article on bank capital. It's a very quantitative paper about the mathematics behind, and I submitted to a trade publication. Of course, I'm not being an optimist. I thought it would never get published, but I was wrong. It got published a week later. I was super happy, overjoyed to see my name, my article on the trade magazine, read by people around the world. This is like from US, right? I was based in Singapore then. And a few days later, one senior manager, 3-4 levels above me, came to my department, and I can see him holding that magazine. And he started asking around, who is Eric Sim? Then he came closer. Somebody pointed, okay, Eric Sim is over there. He came to me. So as he was walking towards me from here, I was looking at him. I was worried because I didn't tell anyone I was publishing that article except my boss. In bank, if you want to publish anything under the banks, that means I was an analyst working for Standard Chartered Bank, I'm supposed to tell corporate communication. I didn't because I was too afraid. And he came, and then I was racing in my head what to say. I said, I'm going to lose my job. Then he came to me. He said, you're Eric Sim? I said, yeah, I'm Eric Sim. Follow me. Okay, so I followed him. Then I walked through 2 doors and then came to this meeting room. Actually, it's the office of the super big boss who's in charge of APAC. He's one down, about 6 of them, all holding my paper, a photocopied one. I say, I'm in super big trouble. So the big boss, his name is Mike. So Mike asked, you're Eric Sim? He's very tall and lean. He said, you're Eric Sim? I say, yes, sir, I'm Eric Sim. He said, you wrote this paper? I said, yeah, I wrote this paper. You wrote it personally? Yes, I wrote it personally. You know what you are writing? Yes, I know what I'm writing. Then he turned around and said, HR, give this young man a sport award. So sport award is like a few thousand US. Because at that time, nobody in the bank can write such a paper. Very technical paper talking about bank capital, which has big impact. And I left immediately after he said that. I was still very nervous, but I was not being optimistic. I was being pessimistic, thinking that I'll be fired. Had I been more optimistic, I would have presented myself better. I would have said, yes, Mike, I wrote this paper. I thought we should develop a new way of calculating bank capital, and it will help our bank as well. Maybe with more optimism, with a better speech and not so anxious, I could have gotten a promotion immediately instead of just a few $1,000s. But anyway, I was happy at that time. So my take on optimism and strategies and innovation is we need to prepare for the downside, but we should also be optimistic that there is a 5% chance something good might happen. And then what you need to do, right? If you write this article, it's gone viral, what do you need to do next? You implement this strategy. If it's gone super well, what should you do next? You should be prepared. Otherwise, you don't have that multiplier effect. So optimism is a multiplier. If things get better, if you're optimistic, it gets 10 times better because you're ready to capture that opportunity. Of course, we also need to be prepared if something goes wrong. So we need to have both and not just hedging the downside, but be prepared for the upside.
I love that. So optimism is a multiplier effect. It's brilliant.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's sort of a segue then to our last question, again with innovation attached to the question, and that is, what's your innovation? What's your own innovation and optimism journey or story?
Me, so I really wanted to share social skills. I think I got it. I think I got like the 20 to 30 skills that people should have, including digital skills, right? Including doing how to impress the interviewer over Zoom. How do you set up your lighting properly with camera, good camera. So all of these skills, so now I'm implementing through universities, through Institute of Life. I'm doing LinkedIn Live, which is very well received. Every time I go on LinkedIn Live, I would have 150 to 180 people coming from around the world at my time zone. When I say 9 p.m., New York is 9 a.m., they come, you know, LA is 6 a.m., they wake up at 5:50 to get ready to join. And, you know, in Australia, I don't know whether you joined or not, but I know a few of the Australian network join at 11 o'clock your time in Australia. So I was very happy that I got this. And I'm planning on a book to put all what I know into a book and then can get into the hands of many students, many young professionals at a very low cost. So this way I can help narrow the skill gap. And there's a community online, whether it's LinkedIn or Institute of Life, and it's not just me, you know, with me, there are people like Victor, like Nóirín, you know, both of you, who can also share your knowledge with the young professionals. And I think optimistically, I mean, if I'm optimistic, it should go very, very far and it will spread. And it is already spreading to Middle East, to Africa. I've got so many requests to ask me to teach. And now I'm choosing the one that I can create the most impact to teach and to share my knowledge.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, the thing we foster, Eric, is realistic and infectiously optimistic leadership. And, you know, Dominic Barton from McKinsey said to me, every great leader he'd ever met is infectiously optimistic, but it's the person who can unlock the optimism in the team. And you're doing that for young people. You're unlocking optimism for hundreds and hundreds and potentially hundreds of thousands and millions of young people. And, you know, so too Bob Iger at Disney in his autobiography last year, that the 10 keys to contemporary leadership. And, you know, people won't find it surprising that my favorite is number one, in realistic and infectious optimism. And I think you epitomize it, Eric. Just that smile, your laughter, your innovation, the strategy, you epitomize that modern 21st century leader. Realistic and infectious optimism. Thank you so much for joining us today in the Optimism Cafe.
Thank you,
Thank
Eric.
you very much for having me. Nóirín, thank you. Victor, it's been such a pleasure to be here with you and allowing me to share my ideas. And I'm very hopeful many people will benefit and many people will live a much better life, even in the midst of this pandemic and technological changes that we are seeing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of the Optimism Cafe with the School of Life's Eric Sim, Project Optimism's Nóirín Mosley, and the Centre for Optimism's Victor Perton. If you'd like to see more and get involved, go to the website Centre for Optimism. You can join up, you can sign up for a free newsletter and read lots of material on the speakers today and optimism in general.